welcome to this episode.
Oh!
The Kingsmith Podcast.
Nathan's getting his old show at this show.
Yeah. For those of you listening on Spotify, I just sat down and destroyed my back. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
We've got a big episode today. Nathan.
Yes, we do. What is that episode, Zach?
Let me pull out the outline here.
Instantly grabs phone.
Because I have it on Google Docs.
I
which
know.
Anyway. So, today, Nathan.
Yes.
We have a big episode because it's a serious episode. So, a little bit of housekeeping. We are talking about Judas Iscariot today.
Mm-hmm.
And part of talking about him is, yes, he did commit suicide. So do be forewarned that we will be talking a little bit about that. We will be mentioned.
Yeah.
Just
We were talking about.
we will. It's just part of the story of Judas and what we are talking about today. So before we get to today we're going to be asking a couple questions about Judas. Before we get to that, I want to clear some things up.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll hear that a lot in this episode. We want to clear things up. We want to make clarifications. We want everything to be as clear as possible about this episode.
Yes.
So, first things first. The text, particularly in the New Testament, in the Gospels, is fairly clear about Judas and what happened.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's very clear. And part of that being clear, part of that clarity is also in the Old Testament.
Yes.
Because while we are asking whether it had to be Judas that was the traitor, regardless of our answer and the conclusion you guys come to as our audience, we are still, that traitor was still prophesied.
Yes. Yeah, traitor was still.
Traitor was still prophesied. So
yeah.
Regardless of if it had to be Judas or Peter or whoever else we mentioned in the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
a traitor was very clearly prophesied. So that's something else that's clear.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Thing number 3. Judas never got saved.
No, he never did.
He never did.
Never did.
We'll discuss the cutoff point of where we think he could have still gotten saved, but anyway, he never did. And then that's thoroughly the question. Lastly, the questions we are asking, they have implications to them. Are the questions have implications? The answers have implications. And I think we'll try to make it clear to what those are as we progress through the episode. So, with all that being said, with all that being stated as clearly as possible, Nathan,
Mm-hmm.
do you think it had to be Judas Iscariot that was the traitor?
My opinion's gone back and forth on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think, looking back with hindsight, there's no other way it could have happened. So in that regard, yes, it had to have been Judas. But if you're looking strictly from prophecy, from the time it was written looking forward, I can't say that it had to have been Judas.
Right. And
That's the way I look at it.
And another clarification, when God wrote those prophecies about a traitor, he knew it was Judas.
Oh, yeah.
God always knew it was Judas. Just because God knew it was going to be Judas who was the traitor doesn't mean it necessarily had to be.
Right.
When he gave the prophecy to, I think, Zechariah, Jeremiah, and I think it was David.
Yeah.
The author, the guy who wrote Psalm 41.
Yeah.
I say the guy who wrote Psalm 41. David was a pretty famous guy. Anyway.
Yeah.
But, it really isn't clear who the traitor was going to be. But the Gospels give us hints that Judas was the traitor
Mm-hmm.
before he betrayed Jesus.
There is a little bit of inference there.
There's a little bit of inference.
There's not much, but there's enough.
When Jesus got anointed by Mary with the perfume, the expensive perfume,
Yep.
it was Judas who said, why didn't she sell it and give the money to the poor or, to ministry?
And it says that he's...
And John specifically says it was Judas, and it was Judas because he was a thief and the holder of the money box.
Yep.
So, we get Judas' character. He's not the best person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it had to be Judas, but I'm not gonna go. You went into the text. I'm gonna go from like a pure human perspective. It didn't have to be Judas. It could have just as easily been one of the other 12.
Yeah, it could have been. I mean, it could have been any of them.
It could have been any of them.
But, like you said, with the inferences, you don't really see that type of inference with all of the others. With the others, you see, with Peter when he denied Jesus.
Right.
There's cause and effect, but there's also restoration. Versus Judas, he never actually sought restoration, and Jesus never really sought it out with him because he knew he was going to be betrayed by him. It wasn't going to, if Jesus tried to, this is going to sound bad, but if Jesus tried to bring restoration and unity to him, it wouldn't have mattered because Judas would have just fluffed it or faked it and would have betrayed him anyway.
Okay, so here. If y'all want a good resource about the 12,
unsponsored, but
12, yeah. Some of the information we're getting about Judas is from this book called 12 Ordinary Men. It's by John MacArthur. He goes just into the backgrounds into some of the why Jesus chose these 12.
John, if you're listening, you can go ahead and sponsor us at any time. We accept cash, check, or even Venmo.
But when I first read the 12 Ordinary Men, when I first was reading through that book, I was like, I'm gonna look up some messages from John MacArthur about the 12.
Yeah. And
I'm not gonna lie, I was interested in Judas particularly. I think MacArthur said he had a similar fascination with Judas but anyway.
He's an interesting character, yeah.
He's an interesting character. But something I like what he said, what MacArthur said is Judas is a master hypocrite. He's a masterful hypocrite.
That we know.
Yeah, we know. He's so masterful in his hypocrisy that he could just slip the mask on and be one of the followers of Jesus.
Pretend to, yeah.
Now, implication with that is there are still other people who are Judas-like, They are masterful hypocrites who can just slip the mask on at any point.
Well, isn't that the book of Jude? Kind of warns about that.
Yeah.
People who can sneak into the church.
And people can sneak into the church, and even people themselves can be fooled by their own hypocrisy. If you think about it, because I think it was one of Paul's letters. They come to him saying, "Lord, Lord," and he says, "Depart from me, I never knew you."
No, I never knew you. Yeah.
So they'll come to him thinking they served him, but he'll say, "No,
you say, no, I don't know." The people that kept performing miracles in his name.
Yeah, but anyway,
they did too, right?
Yeah. And again, the text is clear. It was Judas who betrayed Jesus. It was him who went to the chief priest and said, "Hey, how much are you willing to give me for selling out Jesus?" Basically. So, whether or not, in personal opinion, I think it did not technically have to be Judas. But But starting out, beginning of the ministry when he had all 12 of them, you know, in 3 of the Gospels in the 3 Gospels, they list the 12, you know, Peter, James, John, Andrew, blah 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 blah. The rest, Thomas, and Judas, who became the traitor. He didn't start out as...
He didn't start out as the Iscariot.
He did...
Well...
Iscariot isn't a term of traitor. I mean, it's... Judas Iscariot is synonym for traitor.
Yeah.
Now. But I think MacArthur said that Iscariot is, I think, translated from Carioth, which is a town was a town in Israel.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So.
That's right.
Anyway, so when the ministry first started, I don't think Judas had any plans of betraying Jesus. Now, granted, he did, and it happened. So.
But he definitely made the plans as he went.
He made the plans as he went.
Well, and here's the deal. So Judas was so tied in with the chief priests and the all the high priests and all that, that when Jesus started challenging their authority, that's probably when things kind of switched for Judas, because Judas held to the chief priests and really the Sanhedrin, the entirety of the Sanhedrin, he held to more than he held to Jesus.
Right.
Which doesn't make sense to me. You would think that being around Jesus so much, you would,
right.
You know,
being around Jesus, being around the perfect teacher, you know.
But in a weird way, to be slightly fair to him, there was a little bit of disbelief amongst the apostles too. I mean,
right.
Especially after Jesus died, a lot of them said, "Well, he's dead. Now we get to wait and see."
Yeah, we get to wait and see what's in the upper room. The Romans or the chief priests will be after us eventually.
Right.
Anyway.
So, you know, disbelief wouldn't necessarily be
right.
something that you couldn't come back from.
Even the scripture, the Gospels record that there was some who were following Jesus for a time and then fell away.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so in conclusion, with this whole, did it have to be Judas?
Right.
My conclusion is, first of all, the text is clear. There were prophecies about there being a traitor from
Isaiah 33. Yeah,
Isaiah 33, about a close friend betraying him. I think.
Woe to you, O destroyer.
Yeah, about a friend who betrayed him, basically. And so there was going to be a traitor regardless of who it was. Did it necessarily have to be Judas Iscariot? No, it could have been Simon the Zealot. Just as easy. It could have been Matthew the tax collector if the right offer was made. But it was Judas, so.
Right. So, you know, one of the points you brought up in there, you know, Judas couldn't have been saved. That's something I really, you know, or Judas wasn't saved, not could have been, but wasn't. Zach, I want your opinion. When do you think the cutoff was for Judas? When do you think he lost the ability to be saved?
Okay, so
I've got a pretty spicy opinion on this one.
I think so. First of all, I think we should clarify. I think we both agree that Judas could have been saved.
I think so too.
And
I think so.
This isn't. So for our audience, I'm not saying that this. If you say that Judas could not have been saved at any point, that your salvation is in question. But to believe that Judas could not have been saved leads me to ask other questions about, well, okay, why? Number one, why couldn't Jesus have been saved?
Right.
You know, number two, what do you think? Do you think Jesus, being around Jesus, like face to face with him, do you think that would have been powerless? Because don't forget, there were at least 11 other people around him constantly.
And they struggled too.
They struggled too, but all of them, every one of the other 11, did eventually believe in Jesus. Now, some of them believed earlier on in the ministry. Some of them
it was after he rose.
Some of them it was after he rose. You know,
some of Jesus' own brothers.
Yeah, some of them
like
didn't.
Jude.
Yeah, some of them didn't believe until after he had ascended. So, to say that direct contact with Jesus for around 3 years would not have an effect is not the best thing to say.
Right.
But getting to your question, when was the cutoff? I think the cutoff would have been shortly after he threw the change, threw the 30 pieces of silver at the chief priest.
Yep, I'm with you.
So I think there's a. So here's a thing about the biblical timeline, the timeline of the Bible. There are certain events which we don't know exactly how much time has passed between. Genesis 2 and 3 is a great example. We don't know exactly how much time passed from the end of creation, basically, to when the serpent came and tempted Eve. Eve and Adam, he was there too.
Right.
So we don't know exactly how much time had passed. We do know that it was probably at least a few weeks, I'd say. At least.
Well, if you go off of Jewish tradition, they say 7 years. Although that doesn't make any sense to me because they probably would have had kids by then. But
that's another
debate. But so when I look at the scripture here in Matthew 27, it says, now when morning came, all the chief priests and the elders and the people conferred together. Conferred together against Jesus to put him to death. They bound him and led him away and delivered him to Pilate the governor. So Jesus is still alive.
Jesus is still alive, yes.
Then when Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that he had been condemned, Jesus, he felt remorse and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned by betraying innocent blood. But they said, what is that to us? See to that yourself. And he threw the pieces of silver into the temple sanctuary and departed and went away and hanged himself. So, I look at it and I say, okay, what was he remorseful for? Was he remorseful for betraying Jesus, or was he remorseful for betraying, essentially lying about innocent blood? Anyway, it says innocent blood.
Right.
And then sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, he knew Jesus was innocent.
But it never says he believed.
It never says he believed.
Never says.
So I don't know what your opinion is, but I do believe remorse is a stepping stone on the path to redemption, to finding Jesus. It is a stepping stone that is taken. You need to feel remorse and you need to feel guilt about your own actions.
I think you need to feel guilty. That's how you repent. I mean, you can't, it's a little bit of humility in there. But what did you feel bad about, really? That's the thing.
Yeah.
You didn't feel bad about betraying Jesus, the Creator. You felt bad about
betraying.
This was an innocent guy that I just, sent to the cross.
At the very least, he recognized that Jesus was innocent. So, at the very least, yeah. But
still,
I think so. Yeah, in the text there, it says, and then he went and go hang himself. It doesn't give us an exact time frame, but I do think that the events of Judas throwing the 30 pieces over and then going and hanging himself happened in pretty quick succession.
Well, that's the way that it's written. I mean,
Yeah.
and really, how else would it be? I mean,
Right.
you know, Judas, he's probably thinking, well, the apostles aren't going to take me back, because why would they? I betrayed their guy, and the chief priests have now just said, well, see to it yourself, basically rejecting Judas.
Right.
So now you've got his God, which was Caiaphas and the chief priests, saying no, and you've got what in his mind was the apostles and Jesus rejecting him. I don't think they would have rejected him. I think they would have welcomed him back. But
Right, but we do. I agree. They would have. Okay.
it would have taken some coaxing.
It
I'll
would
say
have taken
that.
some coaxing.
I think Jesus would have had to.
I think Jesus himself would have had to intervene on Judas's behalf, particularly with Peter, because I think.
Well,
okay.
I don't know about that at that point, because Peter had already betrayed Jesus.
Right. But,
There's a lot of betrayal right before Jesus was dead.
Peter denied Jesus, so one, he's feeling angry at himself. But Peter, and number two thing about Peter is the way I read Peter's character is he's probably the most aggressive of the bunch.
Why do you think Andrew was there?
Oh yeah, he's
Had to chill him out.
Yeah, he's the most aggressive of the bunch, as evidenced by him. It was Peter who chopped off the ear of Malchus, the servant, and Jesus
Jesus healed it.
Jesus healed it and said, "Peter, stop it! You're being stupid."
Nice. That's a great summary.
Yeah, but and now in Judas's mind, having seen Peter chop off a man's ear, he's probably thinking, "I go to the 12, I'm dead," because Peter will probably chop me into pieces, and Jesus isn't there to stop it.
Right. Well, that might have been going through Judas's mind. I don't think Peter or any of them really would have done that. I think they probably would have had a conference and say, well, what do we do with the Judas guy who kind of screwed us over? But then at the same time, Jesus, he told all of them, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do.
Right.
And, every single person in the crowd, all of them, even Pilate, they were all there. They all condemned him. They all did the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like they didn't see all the miracles and stuff that he did either. Right. So...
but getting back to your question about where is the cutoff? So I think the cutoff is when Judas decided to hang himself.
I would say the cutoff is when Judas threw the money and ran. I think that's where it is.
And I'll grant you that we do not know when Judas actually committed to hanging himself. So it could have been while he was throwing the money, I'll go hang myself. But if that happened, I'm just saying that's probably the cutoff is when Judas was like, the 12 won't accept me back. My idol,
right.
The Caiaphas and the Sanhedrin have denied me. Where else do I have to go but to go?
Right. Just
end it.
And myself, yeah.
So.
That's so sad that he...
It is so sad. The life of Judas is sad, and...
Of course, he's probably feeling
it
right now.
I hesitate to say there's a special place in the lake of fire, because I think...
I won't.
I think...
Sorry.
Yeah. I hesitate to use that term, that phrase, there's a special place in eternal punishment for anybody. Mm-hmm. But for Judas, and I think particularly for the Sanhedrin of that time, who, even before Judas decided to betray Jesus, even before Judas came to them, they were like, Jesus needs to die.
Right.
I do think they will have a unique punishment. in eternity.
Yeah, well, and I don't want to go, Dante's Inferno on you, but
Right.
which it's a fantastic read. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
where they got the different levels of hell and whatever.
Right.
I don't know necessarily if that exists or not.
Right.
I mean, the Bible doesn't really say, but what is said is that sin is sin and all sin is equal. But
the Bible does make special mention to hell and the lake of fire, which I think are two separate places. We'll see. I'm not sure. Because isn't Hades and hell used interchangeably, and then Hades is thrown into the lake of fire?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, it is worded that way. Yeah.
So.
Oh man, I didn't think of it that way before. You've got hell literally going into the lake of fire.
Yeah.
That's.
So.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's pretty rough.
So, I'm not.
You already have a burning hot black sulfur pit that's a torture chamber being thrown into a lake of fire that falls forever.
Right.
Oh my goodness, that's awful.
And
that's a terrible mind picture.
Let's make one thing clear: God did not create hell or the lake of fire for humanity. Let's be perfectly clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
He did not create it for humanity. He created it for Lucifer and his fallen angels. But because humanity fell into sin,
there's the punishment.
That's the punishment.
Yep.
So, could Judas have been saved? Yes. The cutoff point was
when he chose
not to. And I think he very well could have, at any point during Jesus' ministry, even after he betrayed him, I'm sure he could have found some way to get to Jesus, where Jesus was being held, and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was doing."
Right.
And one of the
I'm listening. I'm looking up another passage here.
And to be clear, Judas did not get saved at any point before he betrayed him. Before, at the end of the Gospels where he betrayed Jesus.
It never says he did.
Never says he did. At one point it says Satan entered him, which I think is an impossibility if you're saved.
I believe that. I'm with you on that one too. Yep. It wouldn't make any sense.
It wouldn't make any sense because we're already indwelt with the Spirit, and it doesn't make sense to have an evil spirit in us with the third part of the Godhead.
Mm-hmm. So, I found that passage, Acts chapter 1, verse 16, talking about Judas committing suicide and more details that were given about it. It says, it's 1 verse 16, "Brethren, the scripture had to be fulfilled, which the Holy Spirit foretold by the mouth of David concerning Judas," which I kind of want to find that passage, because I was looking at Isaiah earlier. But it says, "Who became a guide for those who arrested Jesus, for he was counted among us and received his share in this ministry. Now this man acquired a field with the price of his wickedness, and falling headlong, he burst open in the middle, and all his intestines gushed out. And it became known to all who were living in Jerusalem, so that in their own language it was called Hekaldama, which is the field of blood." It's written in the book of Psalms. It says that in verse 20. "Let his homestead be made desolate, and no one dwell in it, and let another man take his office. Therefore it is necessary that the men who have accompanied us at all times, that the Lord went in and out among us," and then so on and so forth. Basically, they say we needed a 12th person, is what they're trying to say. But, it's interesting the way that it's described in verse 18, that, it says he fell headlong and he burst open, and his guts fell out.
All right, we're back.
We're back. It was a jump cut because our camera stops after 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So, it says that he jumped headlong and all of his guts burst open and everything on the rocks and all that. But in Matthew 27, it says that he hung himself. Well, how does that work? Well, the rope probably broke.
The rope.
I'm guessing.
Either the rope broke or then he used the tie. He tied the rope to basically broke. And
Or the knot wasn't very good.
it could have been a number of things where he.
The point is, it wouldn't have been hard to do.
It wouldn't have been hard to do.
So
after he hung himself, he fell and
exploded.
And
Or, it does say, this might be kind of morbid, it says he burst open in the middle and all of his intestines gushed out. It could have been that he successfully hung himself, and then after a couple days he's all bloated and everything.
the rope couldn't hold his weight.
Either the rope couldn't hold the weight, or he got a little fragile. It snapped, it fell down, and poof.
Yeah, anyway.
It's kind of morbid, I know, but...
Yeah. And,
yeah. I've heard it explained that way before, too.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting to note that after Jesus appears to the 11, the remaining 11,
Mm-hmm.
after he's been crucified and risen again,
Yeah.
he makes no mention of Judas. He doesn't say anything.
No, he doesn't say a word about Judas.
He doesn't say anything good about him. He doesn't say anything bad about him.
No.
And in my
It says
opinion,
nothing.
Yeah, it says nothing. In my opinion, I think Jesus was fully prepared to welcome Judas back as he was to just move on, which I think is what he did. He just moved on from Judas.
Well, notice Jesus never even made mention of those who betrayed him at all.
Right.
In general.
Right. The only one he kind of made mention of is Peter, and that's because he was restoring Peter on the beach.
That's it.
That's it.
Even after Thomas doubted him after he came back.
Yeah,
He didn't say a word about it.
Say a word about Thomas. So, yeah. It just was saying, Judas is such a fascinating character because
It's an unfortunate character.
he's an unfortunate character. Because another question you could ask is how do you spend, well, the question a lot of people ask, I should say, is how do you spend 3 years in constant contact with Jesus and end up betraying him?
Go figure.
Yeah.
I can't figure that one out. But that all being said, I kind of mentioned this at the beginning of the episode where, he probably had been around a lot of false teachers and all of that already to begin with, and he was siding with the chief priest because the chief priest kept fighting against all of the fakes. And so when Jesus comes along, it kind of makes sense that right at first they were cautious. But then, as soon as Jesus started actually challenging their authority, that's when I think the true colors started showing, because Jesus actually proved his deity multiple times. And the chief priest just didn't want anything to do with it.
Right.
So.
And another thing is that I think the large majority of the Jewish population at the time was expecting a conqueror to come in.
Right.
The conquering Messiah, which Jesus will do at the end of time.
Yeah, it's going to take a few more years.
Yeah. Jesus will do at the end of time. That's what he's going to do.
He's taking back.
He's conquering. He's
taking back Israel.
He's taking back Israel. He's once and for all defeating Lucifer, death, sin, all of it, and then just sending it into the realm of eternal punishment, the lake of fire.
That's weird to think about. We've got at least 1,000 more years of this planet.
Yeah.
Minimum.
At minimum. But,
well, 1,007.
Yeah. 2007, yeah. But they were basically the second. They were looking for the second coming at the first coming.
What's that?
They were looking for the second coming of Christ at the first coming of Christ.
Right, right.
So when Jesus came originally, they were expecting him to throw off the oppressive weight of the Roman occupation.
Mm-hmm.
When really, no. They read the prophecies wrong.
Or they intentionally.
They accidentally or intentionally read the prophecies wrong.
Mm-hmm.
They either accidentally or intentionally ignored certain prophecies that said the Messiah was going to suffer and be betrayed.
Yeah, the suffering servant. It's pretty clear in Isaiah 53.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But the general consensus at the time Jesus was born and Jesus started his ministry was the Messiah is going to be this conqueror who throws off from and restores Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So that could have been another reason as to why Judas was like, okay, one, he's challenging the chief priests.
Right.
He's challenging the Sanhedrin. Two, he's not the conquering Messiah that we were promised.
Right. Right. The Sanhedrin had their own idea of Jesus. Unfortunately, we got our own ideas of Jesus too. I think when we go to heaven, we're going to be surprised.
Right.
I'd be kind of upset actually if I wasn't surprised, but
surprise! Jesus was not a blonde-haired, blue-eyed dude from London, England, with
that spoken Old English.
Spoken Old English. He wasn't like glowing. He didn't have,
Well, he did at the Transfiguration.
He did it. Okay, he glowed once.
He glowed a little bit. He was a glow stick for a little bit there.
He was a glow stick for like, 10 seconds?
Well, I mean, he probably glowed a little bit when he was going to heaven too.
Probably. But he wasn't constantly sitting there glowing with like the halo.
Imagine like in the middle of the night, he's like trying to read something or show something to them, and he just like cracks his fingers, and then all of a sudden it starts glowing. He's like, "All right,
he's
sorry,
just like, hold on.
Let there be light again."
Well, imagine if he was, as we portray him in paintings, if he was just glowing constantly, and they're all sitting there and they're trying to sleep, and Peter's just like, Jesus, can you turn off the glow? I need to sleep.
Turn it down, dude. I know we're supposed to be the light of the world, but can we take a nap?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
But, so we will be surprised when we see Jesus.
I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm excited for about heaven?
What?
All the different things we are actually going to be able to do. Like, we'll be able to see brand new colors. We'll be, hopefully, able to fly. I want to fly. It doesn't actually say that, but
I want to
fly.
I wonder if we can fish in the Crystal Lake.
Ooh.
Because I wouldn't mind just popping down there and fishing with Jesus.
What if, like, the water of life is just like a giant fishing pond, and everyone's got a bass boat out there?
That would be awesome.
I would be okay with that.
So.
Trackers up there with all their boats.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
Heaven's just one giant fishing trip.
I mean,
technically that's kind of true. If you look at the fishing of men, the net's up in heaven.
Alright.
Sorry.
Getting back on track.
We had a track?
Apparently. So getting back to Judas, and okay, I'll say we referenced a special place in eternal punishment.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'll say it. I think a better way to say it is for me to phrase that, in my opinion, about where Jesus is going to be in eternity. If he does have a special place in eternal punishment for him, I will not be surprised. Yeah,
that's a good way to word it. Then again, it wouldn't shock me if he had the same punishment as everyone else.
Yes.
Now that doesn't mean that the devil won't do extra stuff to him.
Well, devil's gonna be right there beside him getting punished too. So.
Well, yeah, but he's in control of the situation down there, so.
Yeah. Does it actually say that?
Yeah,
Hmm.
it kind of does. God gave him what he wanted.
Uh-huh.
He said he wanted to ascend and be like Jesus and rule over stuff and everything, and God gave him what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
The next angel that would have done that probably would have gotten the Ice Age. Like,
Yeah.
would have been frozen for eternity.
Anyway.
So,
Um.
yeah, I think so.
But I want to go back a little bit. I mentioned, like, okay, we both agree that Judas could have been saved at any point. And if somebody said that he couldn't have, I asked two questions of why do you say that, and do you believe that being in constant contact with Jesus had no effect on him?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask that first question again. Nathan, if you did not believe that Judas could have been saved, what are some reasons that you would give?
If I believed that Judas could not have been saved
Right.
from the start.
From the start, right. It's like,
What reasons would I give? Well, outside of the obvious that he never believed.
right.
Satan being in him definitely is a large indicator. And if depending on how you read the Psalms and how you read Isaiah 33 and a couple others,
Mm-hmm.
You could try to make the argument that him being the treacherous one or the betraying one, he was going to be made desolate anyway. He was going to be, he was going to be punished anyway. So you could try to make that argument. However, I think that's a stretch. I think that's more, especially Isaiah. The way that a lot of Isaiah is written is retrospective, even though it's prophecy. It was written as if things had already happened, which states the prophet Isaiah's confidence in the Lord's word and everything he saw in his visions. But yeah, I would have to say that because of the way that Isaiah's prophecies are written in general, that argument is really weak, that Judas could never have been saved. More it's he never got saved and then furthered his disbelief, I think, is really more of what happened.
Right. Yeah, he never got saved. So, you mentioned Satan being in him and him being the treacherous one.
Mm-hmm.
I believe when Satan entered him, it was like at the Last Supper. So,
right.
to say that he could not have gotten saved anytime before or after that point. Now, that never says Satan left him, but...
No, well, I think him saying that he betrayed innocent blood, I don't think Satan couldn't have been in him at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Bible never outright states that Satan left Judas.
Right.
But I think he did. One, because of what you just said. He said he betrayed innocent blood. Two,
right.
Satan usually doesn't do prolonged possession, demon possession.
Right.
He is the ruler of all the fallen angels, and if he wanted to possess somebody long term,
mm-hmm.
as with the man that was possessed by Legion, I think he would have sent a demon lower himself to possess Judas.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Satan entering him is not a proof that Judas could never have gotten saved. It's just a proof that he didn't.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I don't.
And
I think he made his case pretty clear.
What would you classify being betraying Jesus as a sin? What you classify as that?
Classified in terms of what I classify. Repeat the question.
So, I'm moving on to him being the treacherous one. Yeah. Would you classify as being the traitor of the Messiah a sin? Because I would say yes. Because
Well, yeah, it would have. Of course, it's
yes,
a sin.
it's a sin. Like in general, just
Yeah.
so
I don't think it's unpardonable.
it's not the unpardonable sin. I'm just asking if you would call it a sin in general.
Oh yeah, I'd absolutely would have to.
So,
yeah.
if it is a sin, and like you said, it's not unpardonable because there's only one.
Well, there's only one unpardonable sin.
There's only one unpardonable sin.
Blaspheming the Holy Spirit.
Right. So it's by far not unpardonable. Here's my question. Here's what I'm gonna say. If it's not unpardonable, and if it's a sin, why are you saying Judas couldn't be saved based solely on him being the betrayer?
Well, it's because of what Jesus said on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing.
Right.
I think there's only one instance that I can think of where somebody actually committed the unpardonable sin.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's only one time that happened. I can't remember.
I think there's one time there is one time that happened. But what I'm saying
At that point, you'd be so far gone.
right.
It wouldn't matter, essentially.
Right.
Which maybe in Judas' case that was the case.
In Judas' case that was
maybe it was, but
maybe it was, yeah. But in terms
I
of
don't think he was too far.
What?
I think he was too far gone.
I think he was too far gone as well. Because he jumped pretty quickly to the coward's way out. I think so.
He was a coward from the get-go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Never give a coward a money box.
Yeah. So I think if you're basing Judas's not being able to be saved on him being on his treachery of Jesus, I think you are missing the picture, the big picture. Because nowhere after Judas betrayed Jesus did Jesus ever say Judas could not have been saved.
It doesn't say it.
It doesn't say it. Now, on the other hand, it doesn't say he could have been saved.
Right, it doesn't. But here's the thing, though. At the fall of man, Adam and Eve walked daily in the garden with God, right?
Right.
And they knew him personally. And then Adam and Eve turn around and eat the apple behind his back, quote unquote. Even though he knew, but they eat the apple in outright defiance against God and condemn the whole planet, and then they lied about it, saying, actually it was her, or actually it was the snake. Well, no, it was all of you guys equally being stupid. But, you don't see God saying, well, that's unpardonable.
Right.
You don't see God saying what the Jewish people did in the desert was unpardonable. Some of them they got consequences, but they weren't unpardoned.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, nowhere in the whole of the Old Testament where a betrayal happens, does it say that it was unpardonable? That God say it was unpardonable? So. I think we need to wrap this up.
Yeah, I think we're getting close there.
So, I'm gonna just conclude my thoughts, and then I'll let you say what you have to conclude yours. In conclusion, did Judas have to be the traitor? Not necessarily. Could he have gotten saved? Yes. Did he?
No. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be Judas, but with the way things played out, there really wasn't another person. And it's unfortunate. But
very tragic.
And that all being said too, How often do we betray Jesus every single day? And yet, there's grace and forgiveness for us, and so I think that should be, well, it is applied for everyone, and I think we need to not be patient with other people too, so we're all as
Alright guys, I think that's gonna be the last part of what we have here.
Yep.
If you have any more questions, go down to the Patreon.
Down there. Patreon. YouTube comment section.
YouTube comments.
We'll see Patreon first though.
I think the way I'm gonna say it is the only way is we will guarantee you that if you do post a question, we will look at it. We will not guarantee answering of it at any point. All right, but we'll try. We'll try to look at it and answer. All right. So go down to the Patreon. Subscribe. Bell. Hit the
every single button minus the thumbs down button. You hit all of them.
If you like the episode, give us a like.
Yeah.
Alright.
Maybe like it 3 times.
If you can. Alright, bye.
Peace. Yeah.
Yeah.